Let's take a look at a tween that's a little bit more complex than simply moving a circle across the stage. So uh, we're going to start by, and this is a good habit to get into, start by making your symbol to begin with rather than working on the stage, because animators have characters or symbols for everything that they're going to animate. So to create your own symbol, we're going to insert a new symbol, and we'll call this propeller. Okay, and you notice that this changes a little bit. The workspace changes a little bit. We get a completely white screen. There's no border or stage border boundary on it. And this little crosshair marks the center of this particular symbol. And our stage looking area has changed a little bit too, so that we're no longer in scene 1. We're actually in a symbol called propeller. So we can, and propeller has its own timeline. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is get my pencil tool, and we'll draw our propeller shape. And I'm taking very careful aim at getting a nicely looking propeller there. That's terrible, but we'll work with that. And this time, because we are doing a propeller, I'll make it gray. So changing the fill color to gray, and we'll fill that. Now you can see that it's not filling in, and that's probably because the shape isn't closed here. So if I zoom in a little bit, we can see that yes, we did actually leave a gap. Okay, so I'm going to tell fill, when I'm working with fill, I'm going to say, and going to the bottom here, close medium gaps for me. So if I've left a little bit of gap, it'll fill in the shape, because we can't fill shapes that aren't a closed shape. Alright, so now that we're doing that, so when I've done that and set it to close medium gaps for me, I've got this filled in. Okay, now in the propeller's timeline, I'm going to give it a little bit of motion. So we're going to create a motion tween. And I only need this to be about 4 frames long. So I'm going to click and hold where it's at 15, the default 15, and bring it back to 4. Okay. And what we're going to say, we're not going to move it on its stage. All we're going to do is give it some rotation. Okay, so what I want it to do is rotate 1 time in those 4 frames. Okay, so it's kind of weird looking because I didn't do a very careful job drawing it. But there's 1 rotation. Okay, now we're going to go back out to scene 1. There's nothing on the stage right now, but if I open up my library is where all my objects are, I can see that I've got the propeller in here. All right, now if I click and hold the propeller and drag it on the stage, there is the propeller. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to animate this propeller across the stage. So we'll right click, create a motion tween. Okay, by default gives me 15 frames. And we'll say that its end location is over here. Right, but don't forget that the propeller has its own animation where it rotates. So every 4 frame is going to complete a rotation. So as it's moving from here to here, we're going to see some sort of rotation. And we're not going to see that until we create the shockwave file. So I'm going to hit Command Return. And we can see that our object moves across the stage and it's rotating as it's moving across the stage. So that's a little bit more complex motion for your animation, but still something that's pretty quick to do. If we were drawing from scratch each frame, that would take much longer. Okay, so that's it for this lesson, and you can move on